All right, so this is Algebra 1. That's what I'm going to title my page. Algebra 1. And we are in Unit 2 now. If you're wanting to know the title of Unit 2, I'll just rewrite that again. It's Linear, L-I-N-E-A-R, Equations, and Inequalities. Okay. Yes, I'm gonna have you guys, I mean, you can do it in your notebook if you'd like. I am starting on graph paper because we're gonna be graphing stuff right off the bat on these notes. So it's up to you. You can also, if we draw a graph, I guess you could like cut it out and put it in your notebook, whatever organizational method you prefer. Okay, this will be page 1 of our notes today. Okay, and today is day 10. So this is the day 10 notes for Wednesday, January 29th. There we go. Okay. So, once you got your page all titled, I am going to have you take a ruler or some sort of straight edge, and we are going to draw a coordinate plane. We're going to draw a graph. So we're going to start with a line that goes up and down, and as I count, I'm going to make that line going up and down about 10 squares tall. So let's do this. I'm going to move it down a little. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then I'm going to put a little line in the middle. That's going to be my middle. Okay. And we're going to put some arrows. Then we're going to draw another line going through the middle of our first line. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's see. I'm going to want it to go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how I'm going to mark my length. Let's see. Just like that. So, here's my little graph. And I'm going to go ahead and label my x-axis and my y-axis. Now, you will notice as time goes on from today till the end of math, I always use a certain color for x and y just to help us kind of differentiate the two. So if you like to follow along and do things the same as me, you're welcome to do that. I'm using red and blue. If not, you're welcome to make it however you want. You don't have to use colors, but I think it helps. So, does anybody know Which of the lines would be the x-axis? Left to right? Yes. So from left to right, the horizontal line, that's our x-axis. And I always make my x red. So that means that the only thing left is the line going up and down, and that is my y-axis. Now, a little side note, when I was in school, I struggled to remember which was which. I always mixed up my x-axis and my y-axis. So I'm going to just show you a little trick that helped me remember which is which. I know that my y-axis goes up and down because my y has a tail that goes up and down like this. So I know y-axis goes up and down. My x-axis, I know that with these arrows on the ends like this, I could turn them into x's. So that's just my trick for remembering. I have x's on the end of the x-axis, and the y has a long tail going up and down. That's just how I remember. So that's why I put it on a sticky note. You don't have to write that, but if it helps, feel free to. So, moving on. Stick this over here. So today we are going to talk about how to graph a line in slope-intercept form. Now, I believe you might have gotten introduced to this a little bit if you were here doing IXL yesterday, but I want us to do it together as well. So I'm going to create just a little title on here. How to graph a line. And then we're going to write like a step-by-step guide under here. That's going to help us remember how to do this. If we ever forget, we can always look back at this page. Okay, so first I'm going to write out the slope-intercept form of a line. Now, you might be thinking, what on earth does that mean? I'm going to tell you. Whenever we see an equation that looks like this, it's always going to start with y equals. And then I'm going to be writing a few other letters in color. The ones that are in color will be replaced with numbers. The ones that I have written in black, x and y, will not have numbers. They will just stay x and y. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a moment. Y equals m, make that purple, x plus, and then an orange letter B. Again, you can choose whatever colors you like, but these are the colors I will consistently use for these letters. I always make my M purple. I always make my B orange. Just a preference. I'm not forcing you to do it. So this is an equation written in slope-intercept. That's what we call that. And I'm going to give you an example of an equation where numbers are plugged in. So here is that example.
Can you make your max?
Yes, my bad. I feel like it gets stuck up there sometimes and I don't even realize it. So we are going to start with the example of y equals let's do 3 over 4x minus 2. So here's our example. I'm going to give everyone a moment to get caught up and written everything down. Okay, so we have an equation, y equals 3/4 x minus 2. The first thing that we do is we want to identify what number we plugged in for m and what number we plugged in for b. So m stands for what we call slope. You guys ever heard of slope before? Yeah, some of you are familiar with that. I'm just going to write above here, slope. And does anybody know what the b stands for?
Y.
It's the y value, your y-intercept is what we call that. So this is why we call y equals mx plus b slope-intercept form, because in this equation we have a slope and we have an intercept. Now, these might sound like another language until we put it into context, so just bear with me. We're going to make it make sense. We're going to use this example. So for step 1, I'm going to write a number 1 here. The first thing we do when we want to graph a line is we are going to graph the y-intercept, or b. So that's our first step. We're going to graph the y-intercept. So if b is the y-intercept, in my example equation, what number would be b? We have 2. Now it says plus b here, but minus 2 here. So would my value for b, would it be 2 or would it be negative 2? Negative 2, very good. So I'm going to circle negative 2 so that I know that is my y-intercept. And underneath, I'm going to write b equals negative 2, just so I can keep track of it. Okay. So we're going to take step 1 over to the graph. We know what our y-intercept is. It's negative 2. And it might help if I had numbered my graph. Let's number our graphs if you have not already. So in the middle here of the graph, where y and x-axis, where they intersect, this is 0. This is our starting point when we count. And as we move to the right on the x-axis, we have positive numbers. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. And from 0 to the left on the x-axis, we have our negative numbers, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Then our y-axis will be the same thing, just up is positive, down is negative. So up I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and down negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Okay. So, y-intercept. We've learned how to graph coordinates where I give you an x value and a y value. But if I only give you a y value, -2, I'm not giving you an x value. That means that we are only moving on the y-axis. We're only going to be graphing either up for a positive number, hello, hello, or down for a negative number. So if my y-intercept is -2, where should I put my first point on the graph? On the -2, on the y-axis. So we're going to pick -2 and just make a little point there. Just like that. So we have graphed the y-intercept. There it is. Would any of you be able to tell me what this point would be written as a coordinate? What would the x and the y value be for this point?
0,
Yes, so we have 0 and then -2. That's okay, that's okay. We have 0 for x, -2 is our y value. So if we wanted to write it as a coordinate, that's how we would do it. I'm just going to label my x and my y. So that's my y-intercept. So the y-intercept is just where does the line we eventually make, where does it touch the y-axis? Right here it touches at -2. So step 1 is done. We graphed the y-intercept. That's all there is to it. You just look at the last number in the equation. You circle it, you say, okay, if it's a -2, I go down 2. If it were a +2, I would go up 2. That's all you do. So now let's go to the second step. We've graphed the y-intercept. For the second step, instead of 0 being our starting point, our new starting point is the point we just plotted. Now, where we put y at -2, we're going to be using this to count from, and we're going to use the slope. So I'm going to write the directions, and then we'll talk about it. Step 1 was graph the y-intercept. Step 2 is use the slope which is m, to graph a second point. All right, I'll pause this for just a moment. Okay, so we know we're going to use the slope to graph a second point. So what is the slope in this example? Y equals 3/4 x minus 2. What's the slope?
Slope.
What number is the slope?
Number 3.
3? What else? There's a 3.
3/4.
3/4, yes. So our slope, let's go ahead and identify the number. The slope is just the number, not the x with it. So we're going to just circle 3/4. That's our slope. And to keep track of it, just like I did the y-intercept, I'm going to write below step 2, m equals 3/4. It's going to help us remember this is our slope, 3/4. Okay. So we're going to use these numbers to find that second point. And Jenny, you already started kind of hinting at it. We're going to start going up. Does anybody by chance know, maybe they remember from the last time they had me or have heard it in the past, does anybody know what we would also refer to slope as? It's two words I'm looking for. They start with R, and it has to do with direction.
Right.
Something over something.
Right over left.
Rise.
Rise.
Rise over run. Okay, if you didn't know that, no worries. But slope is also known as, and I'm going to use my red and blue for this part. Slope is rise, and I'm writing this in blue because we're going up or down the y-axis. If we have a positive number, we rise up over, and then in red for the left to right, run. Rise over run. So, let's talk about what our rise would be and what our run would be here. If the rise is the number on top and the run is the number on bottom of our slope, what would our rise be? 3, because it's 3 over 4, right? Okay, so 3 is going to be our rise. And what would our run be? 4. Good. And are these positive numbers, negative numbers?
Positive.
They're both positive. Good. So, since 3 is positive, that means we are going to rise up 3. And since our run is also positive, we're going to run to the right 4. We're going to go over 4, and we need to do it in this order. So I've got that written down. My rise is 3, my run is 4, and we're going to start from -2. Start from your y-intercept that we graphed. So I start from -2 on the y-axis, and I want to go up 3. So to do that, I'm going to go up 1, I'm at -1, go up 2, I'm at 0, go up 3, now I'm at 1. So let's mark that 1, 2, 3. So there's my rise. I went up 3, and I'll just point to it so you guys can see what I did. Rise was 3. So now I'm at y is +1. Let me zoom in on this real close. So I've used my rise, now I need to use my run. So where do I go from here?
Down.
So we already went up or down. We went up 3. Now we're doing the run. That's left or right? Right. Right how many? 4. Because our rise was 3, so we went up 3. Our run is 4, so we go to the right 4. So I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll point that. Run is 4. And this is my new point. After I've done my rise and my run, wherever you land is your second point. And what would this coordinate be? 4, 1. Good. Over 4 in the x direction and up 1 in the y direction. Very good. Yes, 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 yes. Now we've got some writing all over this graph, so it looks a little funky, but what we're going to do next is exactly what you just said. We now take our ruler and we connect the 2 dots. We connect from the y-intercept and going through the second point we found using the slope. So I'm going to take my ruler and I want to line it up as carefully as I can, making sure it's going through both of those points pretty nicely. Okay. And then when I draw my line, I want it to go not just from point to point, I want it to go all the way through and past the points. And then we want to draw arrows on the ends to show that this line goes on forever and ever in both directions. So we just graphed a line. Yes. Uh-huh.
When you put 4, 1, you use Y. You use the rise for the 1, and then the X for the 4. That's how you got the 4, 1.
So the coordinate that I wrote here, I'm just naming this point. And you can see that this point lines up with 4 on the x-axis, and then it lines up with 1 on the y-axis. So that's where those numbers came from. Does that answer your question? Okay, perfect. Oh, no, no problem. Guys, I always ask when you need reminders on stuff like that. Okay, I'm going to zoom this out a little bit in case anyone didn't see any of that. And of course, step 3, we already did it, but connect the dots. But I'll just write that for fun. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to start drawing another graph, and we're going to do some more practice with this together. I probably should give myself a little more room this time. Okay. If I zoom out like this, you guys still see that okay if anyone's still writing? I'll zoom back in when we get to the next one. But I'm just going to make another graph, but I'm going to move it over a little this time. About the same size. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, it's a little bigger. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, here's my point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I gave myself 5 tick marks on each end of the graph instead of just 4 this time. You guys are welcome to do the same. And this time I'm going to label my numbers right off the bat. And again, if anyone needs me to move the notes back up, if you didn't see something, just let me know. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Okay. And then, as always, I'm going to label my X and Y axis. And then I'm going to give us a new equation. This time, let's do y equals 2/3 x plus 1. So here's my equation, y equals 2/3 x plus 1. Okay, and before we get started on this, does anyone need more time to finish getting their graph ready, finish up notes from the last problem? Or are we ready to get going on this one? Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little. All right, y equals 2/3 x plus 1. Looking at our little guide we just made, what's the first thing we should do here to graph this? Yeah, we want to graph the y-intercept first. So let's write off to the side b equals, because this is b, our y-intercept is b. What is our y-intercept here? 1. Good. b equals 1. So let's graph that first. So where does my first point go? Up 1. Perfect. Here's my first point. Up 1. Beautiful. That was our first step. We graphed the y-intercept. So what would I do next? Yes, let's use our rise over run. What's that also called? Slope. And what is our slope here?
2.
Good. 2/3. So I'm going to circle that, and I'm going to write to the side m equals 2/3. And which one is our rise? Which one's our run? Yes, rise is on top, so 2 is the rise, 3 is the run. So whenever we use rise over run, our 2 and our 3, am I counting from 0 up 2/3, or am I counting from 1 up 2/3? From 1, good. My new starting point is the y-intercept we graphed. Okay, so this time I'm not going to draw the little bunny hops. I'm just going to kind of count them and then draw my next line. But if anyone needs to see that, just let me know. I'm happy to draw it again. So we're starting from 1, and my rise is 2, so I'm going to go up 1, 2. Here's where I'm kind of going to, up to 3. And then my run is 3. So I'm going to go over to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. And my second point should land where? What would this coordinate be?
3.
3, 3. Perfect. I'm at x equals 3. I'm also lining up with y equals 3. Very good. Okay, so we plotted 2 points. What's my last step? Connect the dots. That's it. Awesome. Just connect the dots. Very good. And remember, what do we have to have on the ends of our line? Arrows. Good. If we don't draw arrows, then we've drawn a line segment, and that is not going to be showing the graph of the whole answer. The arrows tell us that this line continues forever in both directions, and that's important. Okay. Any questions about this one? Anybody need time to finish writing it, or everybody got it? Okay, that's pretty good. Let's start another page, unless of course you still have room, but I don't. And I'm just going to title this again. Okay. Algebra 1. Unit 2. This is day 10 notes continued. And we're on page 2 now. Okay. So again, we're going to draw another graph. Actually, let me pause this and see. I might have some papers with graphs already drawn on them to save us some time. So give me 1 second. I'm going to look and see if I still have those. Okay, so I am just going to take this page and I'll probably just attach it to here later on. Maybe I'll do it now so I don't forget. A little piece of tape. Perfect. Okay, so let's look at another example. Let's say I were to give you an equation that says y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. Y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. And I'm going to label my numbers on here. -3, -4, -5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Okay. What would my first step be here? My y-intercept. What is my y-intercept?
2.
2. Positive 2. So I'm going to circle it. I know my b, or my y-intercept, is 2. So where does that go on the graph?
Up 2.
Say that one more time.
Up 2.
Up 2. Good. So I'm going to go up 1, 2. That is my first point. And what happens next?
Use your slope.
Use your slope. What is my slope?
-1/2.
Good. -1/2. So my slope is -1/2. So in the last 2 examples we did, our slopes were positive. Now we have a negative slope. How do you think that's going to affect our rise and our run? Yes. So if our rise is negative, instead of going up 1, we're going to go down 1. So let's go down 1. And I'm going to label this one. Rise is -1. And what about our run?
You go over to
Over to the right or the left?
right.
To the right. Good. Our run's positive. Very good. So I'm going to go over 1, 2. Okay. So my new point is right here. And if I were to label it as a coordinate, what would this second coordinate be?
2 and 1.
Ooh, is it 1, 2 or 2, 1?
1, 2.
Uh-oh.
1.
So let's see.
It's 2 1.
It is 2, 1. It is. So I know the rise over run, I think whenever we start getting used to, we're doing y first and then x for run. Sometimes it like almost undoes the learning we did where x comes first in a coordinate and then y, because it's opposite when we're doing slope. But in a coordinate, remember, it's always the x value first and then the y value. So this point lines up with 2 on the x-axis. So 2 comes first, and then it lines up with 1 on the y-axis. So it's 2, 1.
So X always comes first.
X always comes first in a coordinate, yes. Okay, what's the last thing I need to do? Connect the dots. Yes. So we will do that. Very good. There it is. And if you want to get real fancy, we could label our line. The way that we label the line is we just write the equation somewhere along the line. So I'm just going to write y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. That's how we would label it. It's not so bad. Once we get used to it, it looks really scary if you've never done it before, but when we break it down and see, it's really just like 2 steps. It's not too horrible. Yes?
What is the other one called? Where, you know, you would have, say, multiple points where, you know, they can be like parallel or they cross. Which one is that?
Do you mean like when there's more than one line?
Yeah.
Systems of equations. Yes. So that's something we'll do eventually. And once you get good at graphing an equation, which we've done 3 times today together already, a system of equations is not that much worse. It's just graphing 2 lines on the same graph and seeing where they cross each other. So we'll get to that eventually, but not today. We're going to keep it a little simple today. Okay. So after these 3 examples, if I were to give you a few to try on your own, what is your confidence level in thinking I could do this, or I'm still totally lost? Like, give me a thumbs up if you're like, I think I can do this. Give me a thumbs in the middle if you're like, thumbs down if you're lost. Let me just kind of look around. Good, 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 good. How you feel, Jenny?
Don't worry about me.
Oh, girl. I am worried about you. I'm worried about all of y'all because I care about y'all. I love it when we ask questions. If we can, do we want to go through one more together before I set you off on your own? One more, maybe?
Yeah, please.
Okay, let's do one more, and let's do one with a negative slope. And let's also do a negative y-intercept. Let's do that. We'll mix it up a little. So, just labeling this. I'm going to give you a different one this time. Let's try y equals negative 2/3 x minus 1. Y equals negative 2/3 x minus 1. Okay. So Jenny, I'm going to ask you, what's the first thing we should do here?
The y is a negative 1b.
Yes.
Negative b.
Yes. Our negative 1, that's our b. That's our y-intercept. Negative 1. So where does that go on the graph?
Down 1.
Yes, down 1. Perfect, perfect. So our y-intercept is negative 1. We're going to go down 1, negative 1, on the y-axis. That is perfect. Okay, so we've got our first point. We plotted the y-intercept. What should we do next?
Now we're going to go up. Get 2.
Perfect. So,
With that 1.
okay, here let's label our slope first. I'm going to write m equals, and what is our slope? Yes, so our rise is -2. What's our run?
3.
3. So our slope is -2 over 3, making our rise -2, our run 3. So if my rise is -2, do I go up 2 or down 2?
Down.
Down. Good. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, right here. And my run is 3.
3.
So where do I go next?
3 over.
3 over to the right. We're always going to the right for our run. Let's go 1, 2, and 3. Right here. So we went down 2 over 3. That's our second point. And just connect the dots. Not too bad, guys. Not so bad.
You gotta write out coordinates.
Say that again?
You gotta write out coordinates.
Only if I specifically ask for it. Right now, my main goal is to see that we are able to graph our line. If you can label coordinates, I love that too, but in the future, I won't take points off of your score if you don't label it, if I didn't ask you to label it. But for practice, what would these coordinates be?
3 and -1.
Let's see. So for this one, let's look at the purple one.
It'd be 3 over -2. 3 and -2.
Okay, so my x value, that's where it lines up on the x-axis, 3. So that's my first number. And -3 is where it lines up on the y-axis. So 3, -3. And if it helps, we can label that x and y.
X always comes first.
Yes, x always comes first. And let's label our y-intercept. What is the x value of this number, or of this point? 0. Good. It lines up with 0. We didn't go left or right, so it's 0. And what's our y value? -1. Good.
Say what?
So this point right here, the orange one, the x value is 0 because it lines up with 0 on the x-axis. I didn't have this point over to the right any or over to the left any. Since it's right here in the middle, it's 0 for x. Here, and let me label some of my numbers, -1, -2, -3. Remember, this middle is 0. So if I have a point on the y-axis, if it's touching the line, then the x will be 0. If I have a point on the x-axis, it's touching the x line, my y would be 0 because I didn't go up or down. So my x is 0 for this point, and then my y value is where it is on the y-axis, -1.
You have to grab 2 coordinates.
Yes, you'll have your first point, which will always be, here's a little hint, guys. Every time you graph your first point, your y-intercept, your x value is always 0. Always, and that will never ever change. That is a rule that we can always follow. The x is always 0 for a y-intercept. Always. And then we just pick one more point using our slope. That's it. Okay, I'll leave that over for just a moment if anyone is still finishing up writing. And then we've got 5 minutes until what would be our sort of in-between point from period 1 to period 2. I think I would like to give you guys a little break before we do more practice together. So at this point, I'm going to pause our recording. You're welcome to stay in here if you like. I'm not kicking you out, but I think I'm going to say, yes,
what
please.
What do you call that, where the line crosses over the 0x and the negative, what do you call that? When it touches?
When it touches the y-axis?
Yeah, what's that called?
The y-intercept. Yes, absolutely. And I have that written down here if you wanted to see it. Y-intercept.
Right.
Yes, that's our B. So it is 10:20. Let's say, just be back by 10:35. I'm gonna give you guys like a 15-minute bathroom drink if you need to just walk around, stretch your legs, calm your brain, and then we'll come back 10:35. So you are dismissed momentarily. I would love for you to come back though, and I'll pause this here. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started back up. What I am gonna do, let me pause this music first of all. Okay, I'm gonna write down 5 or 6 equations, and then I'm gonna set a timer. I'm gonna have you guys try and graph those on your own. I will be around to help if y'all need it. And then we're gonna go over them together, see how we did. And that's probably about all we'll do today. I'll give you an exit ticket after that. So let me write a few equations for you. And I'll pause it while I'm writing to make this video not so long. All right, so here are 6 different equations, and using the papers that I gave you with the graphs already printed on them, try and graph as many of these lines as you can. I'll set a timer, and then as you're doing these on your own, if you have questions, I'm here to help. So I'm going to pause this and set that time. All right, so really quickly, before we go over these, I do want to mention whenever you are looking at the exit ticket for day 10, you'll notice that I did write in the instructions to label at least 2 coordinates on each line. So whenever you do the exit ticket, just make sure that you are labeling your X and Y's for the points that you find. Okay, so let's look at these that we just did together. So number 1, I've got y equals 2/3 x minus 4. Where does my first point go? -4 on the x or the y?
We can't see it.
Oh, I didn't realize it was frozen. Thank you. Here, there we go. And I just realized I did what I told you guys not to do. Have it upside down. Okay, so number 1, y equals 2/3 x minus 4. So the first step is to go -4 on the y-axis. -1, -2, -3, -4. So there's our first point. Just for practice, what would that coordinate be?
0.
0, -4. Good. And where do we go for our next point?
We go up to.
Perfect. Our slope is 2/3, so our rise is 1, 2/3. 1, 2, 3. There we go. And what would this coordinate be?
4, 3.
Mm-hmm.
-4.
3 and negative, where does it line up?
Oh, 2.
Yes, perfect. 3, -2. Very, very good. And we just connect the dots. Okay, so that's what your line should look like. If any of you get anything different as we go through these, let me know and we can see what we did. So there's number 1. Let's look at number 2.
So that's how you get the 2 coordinates?
Yes, yes. So the points that you use to find that line, you're just going to look and see where do they line up on the x-axis, write the number. Where do they line up on the y-axis, write the number. That's how you'll do it.
So the
So,
y-axis when you connect the dots.
yes, yes.
Hold on. No, the x-axis is when you connect the dots, right?
The x-axis is, can you repeat that in another way? What are you asking again?
I'm asking because I'm not used to doing the two.
No, that's okay. I think I just didn't understand what your question was exactly. So are you asking where the numbers come from, or?
I'm asking, why, well, pretty much why is it two coordinates? Like, I'm not using those.
Oh, so like why do we need to have 2 points? Why not 3? Why not 1?
Yeah.
So the reason we need at least 2 coordinates here is because whenever we have 2 dots to draw a line through, that's just going to give us 2 points that tell us exactly where the line goes through. And those points are always coming from the y-intercept. So -4 gives us that first point at -4. And you see we have -4 in the y spot. And then the second point is always coming from using that slope, 2/3. See you, Javion. So our rise was 2. That means instead of it being -4 for our y, our rise, we're going up 1, 2. So now we're lining up with -2 on the y-axis. And then we went over 3 for our run. So instead of x being 0, now x is 3. 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Okay, does that make sense?
So pretty much you need a coordinate for y and x.
Yes, yes.
Gotcha.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, any other questions on that one?
Can you do that one more time? The first
Yeah.
one I understand,
Uh-huh.
the second one I'm still lost.
So finding the numbers for the second point?
The first one I understand.
Okay, so I'm going to use a highlighter to show where they line up. So here's my second point. It's just right here on the graph. And I remember that my x value comes first in a coordinate. Let me get that not blurry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my point and look at the x line, which is right here. This is my x-axis. And I want to see where does it line up on the x-axis. And when I trace up to the x-axis, it lines up on 3. So that's where my 3 came from. Then I want to see where does this point line up with the y-axis. Where is it lining up with this line? So I'm going to look over until I hit the y-axis, and you can see that it's lining up with -2, and that's where our -2 comes from. So we're really just kind of tracing the lines with our fingers until we hit the axis. So I'm starting at my point, and I'm just going to trace the lines until I hit my x value, 3. Same here. I go from my point, trace over to my y value, which is -2. And then we just put them in the parentheses, 3 for x, -2 for y. Yes?
So when you're doing your y-axis coordinate,
Mm-hmm.
the 0 always comes before y? I mean,
Yes, on your y-intercept. So here's a little trick. Let's look at all of these. So like for number 1, my y-intercept is -4. So my first coordinate will be 0, -4. On my second one, my y-intercept is +4. So my first point would be 0, +4. On number 3, my my y-intercept is -2. So what would my first coordinate be?
0, -2.
Good, 0, -2.
Okay.
Perfect. So that pattern is always going to stay. It's whatever your y-intercept, your b, the number that we find first, you just put a 0 in for x, and then y is whatever that number is. Yes. Okay, perfect. Do we want to look at number 2 now? Okay, so number 2, we have y equals -3/4 x plus 4. Okay, so where is my first point gonna go? +4. So I'm gonna go up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my first point. And what would that coordinate be?
0, 4.
Perfect. 0, 4. And that came from here. So I'm going to write 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's my first point. We are at 0, 4. How do we find my second point?
Go down 3.
Down 3. So down 1, 2, 3. And where from here?
And go over 4.
Over 4. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. So what would this coordinate be?
It would be 4
Mm-hmm.
and -4.
So let's see. 4, -4 would be all the way down here. But where does this line up on the y-axis?
1.
1. Good. So whenever you're trying to find that point, where does it line up on the y-axis? Remember, we're just going to remember that the y-axis is right here. It goes up and down. And I'm just starting from this point and tracing my finger over until I touch the y-axis.
Okay.
Right here. And it's 1, so my y value is 1.
Okay.
Same with the x. Here's my x-axis. And if I trace until I touch the x-axis, I land on 4. That's where the x came from. All right. So we're almost done. What do I need to do last? Remember, I'm trying to graph a line. Connect the dots. Good.
That's why I be messing up at. I be thinking when you connect the dots, you miss the coordinates.
I got you, I got you. Yes, the coordinates is just the numbers in parentheses that we're writing to label the points. Okay. Any questions on number 2? Everybody got that one? Okay. Can we move to number 3, or does anyone want to go over any part of this? Okay, I'm going to move to number 3. So, for number 3, we have y equals, and I'll move my page in just a second, 1/4 x minus 2. Okay. Number 3, I have y equals 1/4 x minus 2. So, what do I do first? -2. So, am I going up or down?
Up.
For a -2?
I mean down.
Down. Good. So, -1, -2. And what would the coordinate be for this point?
0 and -2.
Perfect. So this is 0, -2. Okay. So there's our first point. We are at 0, -2. And how do we find the second point?
Go
Yes, up 1.
-1 and then over 4.
Over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. Okay, so now, what would this coordinate be?
Is it 4?
Uh-huh.
-1?
4, -1. Good. We line up with 4 on the x-axis. We line up with -1 on the y-axis. Very, very good.
So what if it's lined up, like, say for instance, you had the 4, but, so you don't have to put the dot on the 4, because I thought it'll line up with the 0.
Let's see. So we went from here up 1. So we didn't get all the way up to 0.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, just up 1. If it was 2 over 4, then it would be all the way up to here.
Okay.
But since it's just 1, we're just moving up 1. We're not quite to that 0 for x.
Gotcha.
Yes. Okay, what do we need to do here now? Last step. Connect the dots. Okay, any questions on number 3? Everybody got that one okay? There's number 3.
I'm confused because I keep on putting a dot for the run and that.
I gotcha. So where did you put your second point on number 3? Did you put it up on, right on 4?
Yeah, I put it under 4.
Oh, under 4?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where is it that you're getting mixed up?
I didn't, like, I don't know. I always thought, like, since you went to 4, you put the dot on the 4.
Okay.
Stop at
Me too.
where your ride
Me
and
too.
then go away.
Right, right. And it is tricky doing these. It is very tricky, especially, you know, it's been a very long time for some of us, or some of us it could be the first time we're ever seeing this. So these are super, super common mistakes that you guys are just going to get better and better every time we do more. This is the first day we've done it together, so I'm pretty impressed already. Okay, any other questions on number 3? Any comments? Can we go to 4, or did you have something to say?
So is it better to not dot the rise?
Do you mean like draw the dotted line?
Like dot, put a dot back into the one like you did 2 and 4, -2 and 4.
Let's see, on -2, -4. Oh, do you mean like,
1, like when you go up to 1.
oh, okay, so like when you do, okay, here's my rise, dot, run, like that? Okay, so I see what you're saying now. You won't get counted wrong if you put that second dot, like once you do, okay, my rise is 1, up 1, there's my rise, and then my run is 4. I'm not going to take points off for seeing this point. Just if you do, we need to know that we're not going to draw the line through that point. That's like the marker that tells us how high we went up before going over. So, you know, if it helps you to draw that point and then go to your run, that does not bother me one bit. But if drawing that point might get you mixed up and you might accidentally draw your line straight across through it, then I would suggest maybe not doing that, and instead maybe you could do the little bunny hops, like go 1
Okay.
and then 1, 2, 3, 4. That way you know, okay, these aren't points, these are just where I'm moving. Okay, let's look at number 4. Number 4, we have y equals -2 over 5x plus 3. Okay, so what's my starting point?
3.
3, up or down?
Up.
Up, good, so up 1, 2, 3. And what would that coordinate be?
0, 3.
0, 3. Perfect. Okay, and where do we go to find that second point?
Down.
Down 2. So 1, 2.
And then over 5.
Over 5. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is. Okay, so let me label my x-axis so I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so what would the coordinate be for my second point?
5, 3.
5
Oh, I'm
for my
sorry,
x.
5, 1.
Good, 5, 1. That's okay, now that's perfect. 5, 1. Awesome. Okay, then I'm just going to connect the dots. That is good, guys. Okay, so there's number 4. Any other questions on number 4? Okay, let's move to number 5. I have y equals 4/5 x minus 1. Okay. Where's my first point? Minus 1. So do I go up 1 or down 1?
Down.
Down. Good. So down 1 right here. And
Five, 4.
now what would this coordinate be before I do my second one?
0 minus 1.
Good. 0, negative 1. And let's find the second point. Where do I go?
Up 4.
Up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And then over 5.
Over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so what would my coordinate be for my second point?
5, 3.
5, 3. Good. Over 5 on the x, 3 on the y. And we connect the dots. Okay. Any other questions on number 5 before we do the last one? Okay, last but not least, number 6 is y equals negative 1/3 x minus 2.
Start with negative 2.
Perfect. Start with negative 2.
Then you go down 1.
Okay, so here's my first point. I'm at y is negative 2. And then you said go down 1.
Yep.
So down 1
Then go over 3.
and over 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. So let's label our coordinates. Just get more practice with that. Our first coordinate, the y-intercept, what is that coordinate going to be?
0, negative 2.
0, negative 2. And how about our second one?
3,
3,
negative 3.
negative 3. Perfect. Okay, and I'll just connect the dots, and that is it. Very, very nice. Okay, so there's our practice problems today. You guys did great with that. So, to end the day, maybe you've done it, maybe not yet. Either way is fine. Your exit ticket for today is to do the same thing we've been doing. You are going to graph 2 linear equations. That's what these are that we've been working with. On your graph, just like we've been doing, you need to label at least 2 coordinates on each line. So the 2 points that you put on the graph, make sure that you give me an x and a y value for both of them, okay? If you finish that, you're free to go. Please make sure you turn it in the bin over by our folders. And that's all today. You guys are free to go. Welcome to stay, though, if you have questions or just want to hang out. And that's it.